The cold February wind swept across the coastal testing grounds of Cambridge, Massachusetts, carrying with it the distant hum of factories working day and night for the war effort. It was 1945, and America stood in the tense final stretch of the Second World War. Inside the Raytheon laboratory, a squat brick building dimly lit by wartime, blackout, regulations engineers, and physicists were gathered around a machine that pulsed with a deep, steady vibration. It was a high-power radar magnetron, one of the devices the Allies hoped would perfect airborne detection and secure a strategic edge in the conflict. But on this quiet night, the radar would reveal something no one had been searching for. Standing closest to the machine was Percy Spencer, a self-taught engineer with a calm demeanor and a mind sharpened by years of solving problems most people couldn't even define. He had grown up in rural Maine without electricity, lost his father at 18 months, and started working in a factory at age 20. Nothing in his past suggested he would one day become one of America's most brilliant wartime innovators. And yet, here he was, one of Raytheon's most trusted radar specialists, known for his uncanny ability to feel how machines behaved. As Spencer adjusted a component on the magnetron, he suddenly noticed something unusual. A strange warmth spreading through his pocket. At first, he assumed it came from the equipment. It wasn't uncommon for the testing room to heat up after hours of experimentation. But when he shifted his coat aside, he froze. A small chocolate peanut candy bar he had tucked into his pocket only minutes before was beginning to melt. Not soften melt. With no heat source near it. He stepped back, puzzled. The magnetron had been activated only moments earlier. Could the radar waves have caused it? The idea seemed impossible. Radar was meant to detect aircraft, not skook food. Still, Spencer's instincts told him the timing was no coincidence. He reached for another test this time, a handful of dry corn kernels from a technician's snack bowl. He placed them near the magnetron and activated the device again. Within seconds, the room echoed with a sharp pop, then another. Then dozens. Kernels exploded one by one, scattering across the floor like tiny fireworks of curiosity. The technicians stared, wide-eyed. What they had just witnessed had nothing to do with radar detection. No connection to military strategy, no immediate bearing on victory. But Spencer knew it meant something. His mind raced not with thoughts of weapons or wartime urgency, but with the possibilities of controlled energy shaping everyday life. Still, he kept his discovery quiet. The country was at war, and everything they touched had to serve the war effort first. As the magnetron's glow dimmed, Spencer picked up a warm kernel from the floor and examined it between his fingers. He felt a strange mix of wonder and responsibility. In the middle of a global conflict defined by destruction, he had stumbled upon something that could change the future in a way no battlefield ever could. The experiment would require testing, documentation, proof. But one thing was certain. The radar had behaved strangely that night, and the world would never be the same because of it. The following morning, Percy Spencer arrived at the Raytheon laboratory earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen over the snow-dusted rooftops of Cambridge, and the building still hummed with the after-hours silence of a wartime facility catching its breath. But Spencer wasn't thinking about the radar reports waiting on his desk or the new batch of magnetron components scheduled for testing. His mind was fixed on the events of the previous night. The melting candy bar, the exploding corn kernels, the unmistakable feeling that something extraordinary had happened in that dimly lit room. Most engineers would have dismissed it as an anomaly. Spencer wasn't wired that way. Curiosity had built his entire career, and today, curiosity wouldn't let him sit still. He cleared a small workbench beside the magnetron cabinet and placed a piece of bread on a ceramic plate. It was a simple test, the kind only a practical thinker like Spencer would attempt. He activated the magnetron, watching the soft orange glow appear through the mesh-protected chamber. Within seconds, the bread began to dry and curl around the edges. Another test, he fetched an egg from a cafeteria tray left from the night shift. When the magnetron activated, the egg trembled. His stand burst, harmlessly splashing onto the metal interior. Spencer stared at the mess, startled but exhilarated. Whatever energy the radar system emitted was interacting directly with food, agitating moisture molecules in ways he had never imagined. This wasn't chemistry. It wasn't conventional heat. It was something entirely new. By midday, word had reached several other engineers. They gathered around Spencer as he conducted experiment after experiment, each one confirming the same pattern. The magnetron didn't heat the air or the surfaces around it. It heated the food itself. One technician leaned close and muttered, "This is impossible." "But it's happening." Spencer didn't answer. He was too deep inside the problem, too focused on understanding the mechanism behind the strange effect. He reached for his notebook and began sketching diagrams, waves, frequencies, penetration depths, trying to map the invisible force that transformed food in seconds. He wasn't concerned with applications yet. He only cared about the truth. But Raytheon was still, first and foremost, a wartime contractor. Every hour, the company delivered radar components vital to the Allied effort, and Spencer knew that any discovery, even one as strange as this, had to be framed within the boundaries of wartime necessity. That afternoon, he presented his initial findings to his supervisor, Dr. Milton Franklin, a reserved but sharp-minded physicist who supervised experimental research. Franklin listened carefully, arms crossed, tapping a pencil against his clipboard. When Spencer finished, Franklin exhaled slowly. "Percy, radar is for detection, not cooking." Yet behind the skepticism, Spencer sensed something else: interest. A cautious, quiet interest. "Document everything," Franklin finally said. "If this effect is real, the company will want proof." Spencer spent the next hours constructing what would become the world's first microwave test box, a metal enclosure designed to focus and contain the magnetron's emissions while exposing food samples safely. It was crude, improvised with materials at hand, but it worked. Vegetables soft and cheesy melted, meat warm. Every experiment confirmed the same principle. Electromagnetic waves could cook food rapidly and evenly, without open flames or conduction. Spencer stood back, wiping sweat from his brow, feeling a mix of disbelief and excitement. The implications were enormous, far beyond radar, far beyond military applications. But in that wartime lab, surrounded by engineers, racing against deadlines, and the distant tension of a world still at war, Spencer kept his excitement quiet. The discovery was too new, too undefined, too fragile. He knew he had stumbled onto something revolutionary. But revolutions, especially scientific ones, began with discipline, not celebration. For now, he would study, observe, and wait. The strange behavior of the radar was no accident. It was the first signal of a future no one yet understood. The Raytheon laboratory had always been a place of controlled chaos, oscilloscopes flickering through the night, engineers shouting calculations across crowded benches, and the metallic scent of solder lingering in the air like a second atmosphere. But after Spencer's strange discovery, the atmosphere shifted. There was an undercurrent of quiet excitement, a sense that something unusual was unfolding behind the usual radar work. Engineers who had spent years calculating wavelength interference and refining detection accuracy now found themselves peering over Spencer's shoulder as he performed tests with food items rather than circuitry. The war outside demanded precision and discipline. Yet inside this lab, science was beginning to behave unpredictably. Spencer remained methodical. He kept his experiments discreet, not wanting to draw unnecessary attention from military administrators who might shut down any work not directly tied to radar advancement. Still, he allowed a select circle of trusted colleagues to assist him. Among them was Charles Adams, a young engineer with a meticulous nature and an eager curiosity. Adams watched as Spencer placed a slice of cold potato into the test box. The magnetron hummed. Within seconds, steam curled from the potato's edges. Adams blinked, stunned. "Percy, this could change the way every kitchen in America works." Spencer offered a faint smile, but his voice remained grounded. "Let's understand it before we predict it." Meanwhile, Dr. Milton Franklin kept a cautious eye on the experiments. He wasn't opposed to innovation. He simply understood the wartime stakes. Every discovery had to be weighed against urgency, resources, and national priorities. During one late-night review, Franklin stood beside Spencer at the magnetron table. "You realize," he said, adjusting his glasses, If we pursue this, it must not interfere with radar production. The military is counting on these systems. Spencer nodded. It won't. But this is real. Milton, we're not imagining it. We're witnessing a new form of heating, instantaneous, directional, precise. Franklin studied Spencer's face and saw no exaggeration, no ego, just truth. Then document everything, he said, and keep the circles small. Outside the lab windows, wartime America moved with relentless purpose. Raytheon lines, factory shifts, radio bulletins announcing distant battles. The country was focused on survival and victory. Yet inside Raytheon, Spencer and his small team were exploring a discovery that had nothing to do with defeating enemy aircraft and everything to do with transforming civilian life in ways no one could foresee. Spencer often paused during experiments, imagining a peaceful future where this technology might serve ordinary families instead of military strategy. But he forced himself back to the present. The war wasn't over. Dreams could wait. As experiments continued, the team kept detailed journals, exposure times, food textures, and structural changes. They noticed patterns. Foods with higher moisture content heated faster. Shapes mattered. Thickness mattered. Proximity to the magnetron mattered. It was science at its most raw, observation shaping understanding. Understanding shaping hypothesis. Every note they wrote brought them one step closer to explaining the mechanism behind the bizarre effect. And every step confirmed that this was more than a laboratory curiosity. But as Spencer locked his notes in a drawer one evening, he sensed something deeper rising beneath the surface of the discovery. Sensed that the radar's unexpected side effect had unlocked a door that could never again be closed. They were no longer studying equipment. They were studying possibility, and possibility had a way of rewriting history before anyone noticed it happening. The war tightened its grip on Raytheon with every passing week. Allied commandos demanded faster, more reliable radar units to detect incoming aircraft over the Atlantic. Military trucks arrived almost daily, loading crates of magnetrons destined for naval convoys and bomber squadrons. Engineers worked through sleepless nights, their bodies exhausted but their minds sharpened by urgency. In that environment, discoveries unrelated to wartime objectives were expected to be shelved. Yet, Percy Spencer felt a growing tension inside him, a conflict between duty to the war effort and duty to the truth unfolding in his laboratory. He wasn't chasing a curiosity anymore. He was documenting a phenomenon that could reshape daily life after the guns fell silent. Dr. Milton, Franklin sensed this conflict as well. One afternoon, he pulled Spencer aside in a narrow hallway lined with supply crates and blueprints. "Percy," he said quietly, "we're walking a thin line. The military doesn't want distractions. They want output." Spencer nodded, understanding the weight of those words. "I'll never jeopardize production," he replied. "But this discovery, it deserves clarity. We owed the world that much." Franklin studied him for a long moment. He knew what Spencer meant. War wasn't just about defeating an enemy, it was about preserving a future worth returning to. And perhaps, in the middle of destruction, a small spark of innovation could become part of that future. Still, Spencer worked cautiously. His experiments grew more structured, more disciplined. Adams helped him wire temperature probes into the test box, measuring changes with the precision normally reserved for military instruments. They tested vegetables, grains, meats, dairy, each responding differently, each offering clues. Spencer noted that moisture molecules seemed to vibrate rapidly under the magnetron's waves, generating heat from within rather than from an external source. It was controlled thermal agitation. It was efficient, it was unlike any conventional heating method known, and it wasn't dangerous, at least not when properly contained. But they needed confirmation. Evidence, safety protocols. Spencer wasn't chasing fame. He was building understanding brick by brick. Meanwhile, the war's emotional toll weighed heavily on everyone in the facility. News bulletins crackled through radios about Allied advances in Europe, casualties, and the weary march toward a final victory. Some engineers had brothers overseas. Others had sons. Spencer himself thought often of the young soldiers relying on the radar units his hands helped build. Each time he shipped out a finished system, he felt a wave of quiet, prudent responsibility. In those moments, he questioned himself, was his side discovery a distraction, or was it something the world would eventually thank him for? One evening, while reviewing data, Adams placed a hand on the table. "Percy," he said softly, "you've given the military everything they've asked for, but this is yours. This might help people after the war in ways none of us can imagine." Spencer didn't respond immediately. He stared at the glowing filament of the testing lamp, its light trembling against the metal surface of the magnetron. Adams was right. For the first time, Spencer realized he wasn't simply documenting an accident. He was shaping a technology no one had expected, something peaceful born from a machine built for war. As midnight approached, Spencer locked his notes and shut down the equipment. The hum of the magnetron faded, replaced by the distant rumble of passing supply trains. He stood in the doorway of the lab, watching the shadows settle across the room. In the silence, he understood a truth that steadied him. Inventions were never tools of war or peace by themselves. People made them so, and this discovery unexpected, powerful, strange might one day help build the world the soldiers were fighting to protect. By late spring of 1945, the Raytheon facility was operating at a relentless pace, its laboratories humming like an orchestra of urgency. Victory in Europe hovered on the horizon, yet the war in the Pacific demanded unwavering output. The magnetron, small, powerful, and temperamental, remained the heart of radar innovation, and its production line never slept. Still, in the shadows of that wartime intensity, Percy Spencer and his small circle continued documenting the mysterious heating phenomenon with a discipline that bordered on devotion. Spencer wasn't following a hunch anymore. He was following evidence, and the evidence was pointing to a breakthrough that science had not yet been prepared to name. One evening, Spencer invited Dr. Milton Franklin and a select few engineers into a side room repurposed for testing. A metal enclosure stood in the center, larger, now sturdier, lined with shielding panels he had scavenged from outdated equipment. Spencer called it a cooking box, a name that made Franklin raise an eyebrow but say nothing. On a small plate inside, Spencer placed a piece of cold sausage. He sealed the door, activated the magnetron, and stepped back. The hum filled the room, low and steady. Seconds later, steam curled from the sausage, and a faint aroma drifted out as Spencer opened the door. Franklin blinked, leaning closer. "You're not imagining this. It really works." Spencer nodded. "And it works every time." Franklin crossed his arms, weighing the implications. This was no longer a strange side effect. This was controlled, repeatable physics. Energy transforming food from the inside outward. Efficiency unmatched by any stove or flame. "Percy!" Franklin said, lowering his voice. "If this is real, and it is, we need to consider what happens next." Spencer sensed both curiosity and caution in his tone. Wartime inventions had always been evaluated in terms of military utility, but this discovery carried none of the characteristics of a weapon. It didn't detect planes, scramble signals, or interfere with communications. It simply heated food. Astonishingly fast. Over the next weeks, Spencer's tests became increasingly refined. He measured frequencies, penetration depths, and energy distribution patterns. Adams helped chart the relationship between moisture content and heating efficiency, confirming that foods with higher water composition absorbed the magnetron's waves more rapidly. They tested glass, metal, ceramics, learning how each material interacted with the waves. This wasn't guesswork anymore. It was the beginning of a new field, dielectric heating. Spencer felt a quiet thrill each time an experiment confirmed his theories. For the first time, science was catching up to instinct, his instinct. But the world outside didn't yet understand what was happening inside that bunker-like laboratory. Soldiers were returning home. Families were rebuilding. America was preparing for a post-war boom with a hunger for innovation. Still, no one expected that a device born from the radar race would soon find its way into kitchens, restaurants, and hospitals. Spencer understood this potential. but he carried it carefully. The last thing he wanted was to disrupt wartime priorities or misstep in a company where precision and discipline were essential. One afternoon, Adams placed a stack of carefully organized notes on Spencer's desk. "This isn't a curiosity anymore," he said softly. "It's a technology." Spencer held the papers, feeling their weight, not the weight of pages, but of responsibility. He knew that once Raytheon recognized the commercial potential, the discovery would no longer belong to the quiet walls of that lab. It would belong to the world, and that world, still healing from global conflict, was about to encounter a piece of science born not from ambition but from a simple moment of curiosity, a candy bar melting in a pocket. As Spencer shut down the lab for the night, he sensed that the war had taken something from every man and woman who lived through it, but it had also revealed something profound. Even in the midst of destruction, human ingenuity could spark unexpected, peaceful revolutions. His discovery was one of them, and he knew that the chapters ahead, whatever they held, would transform this quiet laboratory accident into one of the most influential inventions of the 20th century. When victory was declared in Europe in May of 1945, the Raytheon facility erupted in relief that felt almost surreal. Engineers who had worked through sleepless nights embraced each other in hallways still cluttered with blueprints. Radios crackled with news of liberated cities, returning troops, and a continent taking its first fragile breaths of peace. But while celebrations filled the streets outside, inside Percy Spencer's laboratory, the mood was quieter, more contemplative. Spencer stood beside the magnetron testing unit, running his fingertips along the metal casing as though greeting an old companion. The war might have ended, but the strange force inside these chambers continued to raise questions he couldn't ignore. With wartime restrictions slowly lifting, Raytheon's leadership called a meeting to discuss post-war priorities. Military contracts would shrink. Civilian markets would grow. Innovation would become the company's future lifeline. Spencer sat among dozens of engineers and executives as they outlined possible paths: communications, aviation, industrial electronics. Yet while the discussion unfolded, Spencer's mind drifted repeatedly to the lab tests. Only a handful of colleagues truly understood. When the meeting adjourned, Dr. Milton Franklin approached him quietly. "We need to talk," he said. "Not about radar, about your discovery." They met in Franklin's office, a narrow room with a single drafty window overlooking the factory yard. Franklin closed the door behind them. "Percy," he began, "I reviewed your data again. You have something extraordinary, something that doesn't belong to wartime science." Spencer nodded, almost relieved to hear someone else say what he had been thinking for months. Franklin continued, "The magnetron's ability to agitate water molecules. It's consistent, controllable, safe when contained. This isn't just physics-site's opportunity." Spencer leaned forward. "But is it useful?" Franklin didn't he hesitate. "Useful, Percy? It could change how people cook, how hospitals sterilize equipment, how food is preserved. It's bigger than either of us." News of Spencer's experiments slowly spread through Raytheon's executive offices, sparking curiosity rather than skepticism. Post-war America was hungry for innovation, labor-saving devices, faster workflows, modern conveniences. The nation had endured rationing, shortages, and sacrifice for years. Now, industries were racing to meet civilian demands with technology that promised a brighter, easier future. To Raytheon leaders, Spencer's discovery seemed perfectly aligned with the post-war spirit. They encouraged him to prepare a formal demonstration. Still, Spencer hesitated, not out of doubt but responsibility. He remembered how radar, a tool of protection, had been shaped by wartime necessity. The magnetron's unintended effect had emerged in that same crucible. And now, in peacetime, the technology carried a new kind of weight. "If we push forward," Spencer told Adams during a late-night work session, "we're deciding how a scientific accident becomes part of everyday life. That's not a small step." Adams wiped grease from his hands and nodded. "Then take the step carefully." But Dei Italiano. In the following days, Spencer prepared the most precise series of tests yet. He documented temperature curves, exposure durations, safety thresholds, and chamber designs. The magnetron hummed through the nights, a steady reminder that discovery didn't pause just because history had turned a new page, as he recorded data into neatly labeled notebooks. Spencer felt a sense of clarity and understanding that the war, despite all its brutality, had also given birth to unexpected innovations meant for peace. His discovery had survived the conflict. Now it needed to survive scrutiny. One evening, Spencer stood alone in the lab, the very place where a melted candy bar had begun this quiet revolution. The hum of the magnetron echoed softly, almost like a memory. Outside, the world was rebuilding, dreaming, moving forward. Inside, Spencer felt something rise within him, not pride, not ambition, but a quiet conviction. The science was real, the potential was real, and the time had come to share it. The war had ended, but the question that had grown from its shadows remained. What would this accidental discovery become in the hands of a peaceful world? Raytheon executives gathered in a small conference room on a cool morning in late 1945, unaware that they were about to witness a demonstration that would alter the trajectory of the company and modern life itself. The room still carried the energy of wartime urgency. Maps pinned to walls, radio sets stacked in corners, coffee cups stained from long strategy meetings. But today's presentation had nothing to do with aircraft detection or military contracts. Percy Spencer stood near a metal testing chamber, his hands calm but his mind racing. He had spent months preparing for this moment, months refining every detail to prove that what he had discovered was not an anomaly, but a breakthrough. Dr. Milton Franklin entered last, giving Spencer a reassuring nod before taking a seat near the front. Beside him sat Raytheon's president, Lawrence Marshall, a disciplined businessman known for his sharp instincts and quiet decisiveness. "Mr. Spencer," Marshall said, folding his hands, "we've heard unusual things about your work. Show us what you've found." Spencer took a steady breath. He placed a small bowl of corn kernels inside the metal chamber, closed the door, and activated the magnetron. The executives leaned forward, puzzled. Seconds passed, then the rapid popping began, loud and unmistakable. When Spencer opened the chamber, warm, freshly popped corn spilled out onto the tray. A murmur filled the room. Franklin stepped forward. "Gentlemen, what you just witnessed is controlled dielectric heating, caused by microwave energy emitted from a stable magnetron source." Marshall examined a handful of popcorn, his brow raised. "You're telling me this machine cooks food?" Spencer nodded. "Faster than any method known. Without fire, without heating the surroundings. Only the food itself. Silence follow. Analytical silence." The executives didn't laugh or dismiss the idea. They studied it, calculated Italiano, understood its potential more quickly than Spencer expected. After years of meeting military demand, Raytheon was ready even to pivot toward the booming civilian market. But Spencer wasn't finished. He placed a cup of cold oatmeal inside the chamber and activated the magnetron again. Within seconds, the oatmeal steamed. The executives exchanged glances. This wasn't a novelty. It was a new category of technology, one with industrial, culinary, and medical applications. Marshall leaned back, tapping a pen thoughtfully against his notebook. "Mr. Spencer, if this is safe and scalable, you may have just handed Raytheon its next post-war industry." Spencer felt a quiet rush of relief. Months of caution, secrecy, and data were finally bearing fruit. Yet even in their excitement, the team approached the discovery with measured responsibility. Safety tests had to be expanded. Shielding needed improvement. Public understanding would require education. They were holding something powerful, something born from a device designed for wartime detection. As the meeting continued, Adams whispered to Spencer, "We did it, Percy." "They see it." Spencer offered a rare smile. "Yes, but now we must do it right." Later that afternoon, after the executives left, Spencer remained in the empty conference room, staring at the test chamber that had just stunned a boardroom. He thought about the war, how destruction had forced scientists into discoveries no one anticipated. But here, in the quiet of peacetime, one of those discoveries had taken a peaceful form. He touched the cool metal of the chamber, feeling the weight of responsibility settle around him again. "This isn't just invention," he murmured. "It's possibility." That night, as Raytheon's corridors echoed with renewed optimism, Spencer returned to his lab with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be complicated engineering challenges, public skepticism, government approvals, but for the first time, the discovery no longer belonged to a single lab or a single engineer. It was stepping into the world, and the world was finally ready to listen. The first prototype stood in the center of the Raytheon workshop, like an industrial relic from a future no one had asked for. It was 6 feet tall, weighed nearly 750 pounds, and looked more like a safe stolen from a naval ship than a kitchen appliance. Engineers gathered around it, whispering in disbelief. Some joked nervously. Others stared with the uneasy respect usually reserved for powerful machinery. But Percy Spencer felt something deeper. This machine, enormous and unpolished, carried the same quiet glow of potential he had sensed the night the magnetron melted a candy bar in his pocket. After months of refining tests and strengthening containment, Raytheon was ready to build the world's first microwave oven prototype. They called it the WWII. Dr. Milton Franklin circled the towering steel box, running a cautious hand along its welded seams. "It's not pretty," he admitted, "but it works." Spencer nodded. "Appearance is phase 2. Understanding is phase 1. The prototype required plumbing for heavy shielding and a dedicated power supply that rivaled industrial equipment. Yet, despite its size, the WWII represented something intimate, a transformation of the most ancient human routine. Preparing food, for thousands of years, heating had relied on flame, coals, or conduction. Now, energy used to scan the skies for enemy aircraft was being redirected into a peaceful corner of everyday life. Franklin exhaled slowly. "War pushed us to create technologies that don't belong to war anymore." Raytheon executives sent a small team to study potential markets: restaurants, hospitals, ocean liners, manufacturing plants anywhere that required rapid, large-volume heating. In a post-war America hungry for innovation, the WWII was a machine without precedent. Its capabilities stunned observers. Frozen foods thawed in seconds. Vegetables cooked in moments. Liquids boiled with a speed that felt almost uncanny. Yet demonstrations sparked a mix of fascination and caution. Some chefs saw opportunity. Others saw something unnatural. One restaurant manager, after witnessing boiling water in under a minute, simply whispered, "It's sorcery." Spencer smiled politely, but inside he felt the tension of bridging worlds. Scientific fact and public perception rarely marched at the same pace. Behind the scenes, engineers perfected shielding to ensure electromagnetic containment that exceeded safety standards. They ran tests around the clock, documenting every detail. They recorded heat distribution, chamber behavior, energy output, and operational stability. Spencer insisted on over-engineering the safety features. "If we do this," he said firmly, "we do it responsibly." The war had taught him how technology, when rushed or misunderstood, could spiral beyond intention. Now, in peace, he wanted no part of that legacy. Franklin supported him. "Public trust," he reminded the team, "is the backbone of civilian technology." As Raytheon prepared internal reports, Spencer found himself alone with the WWII. Late one evening, the factory floor lights flickered softly above him, reflecting off the machine's steel surface. He placed his hand against the cool metal, imagining the things it might one day do: help familias speed up kitchen work, reduce energy consumption, transform food service industries. But he also imagined doubt, resistance, even fear. New inventions often frightened the public before they helped them. He had seen enough wartime psychology to know that acceptance required patience and humility. He whispered, "You'll have your time. Just not yet." Still, momentum was building. Engineers sensed it. Raytheon sensed it. Spencer sensed it. The world was shifting toward modern convenience, and the WWII, despite its imposing size, was the first step toward a future of speed, efficiency, and quiet revolution. As he powered down the machine that night, Spencer understood something profound. While the war had forced nations to race toward destruction, it had also inadvertently unlocked technologies that could build a gentler world, and the Radaranj, towering, humming, misunderstood, stood at the threshold of that new world, waiting for its chance. By 1946, Raytheon was preparing to introduce the Radaranj to the WWII that had just emerged from global conflict and was eager for stability, comfort, and normalcy. Yet for all its promise, the machine faced a challenge more difficult than engineering. Public acceptance. Americans trusted stoves, ovens, and open flames because they had relied on them for generations. The Radaranj, with its humming magnetron and futuristic technology, seemed foreign, almost mysterious. Spencer understood this deeply. Wartime psychology had taught him that people rarely embraced the unfamiliar without hesitation, even when innovation offered undeniable benefits. To bridge this gap, Raytheon arranged a series of controlled demonstrations for restaurant owners, hotel managers, and medical professionals. Spencer stood in front of audiences, explaining the science in simple, reassuring terms. "This device doesn't cook from the outside in," he would say, tapping the metal chamber lightly. "It excites water molecules directly. It's efficient, clean, and safe." He kept his tone calm, his posture humble, emphasizing the practical advantages rather than the mystique. Yet reactions remained mixed. Some attendees leaned forward with fascination. Others leaned back with folded arms, suspicious of a box that could boil water without heating the air around it. One chef approached Spencer after a demonstration. "Mr. Spencer," he said cautiously, "how do we know it's safe? It doesn't feel natural." Spencer listened patiently. He knew the concern wasn't ignorance. It was human instinct. People had lived with flames for centuries. Fire was familiar, visible, comforting. Microwave energy, in contrast, was invisible. "Safety comes from understanding," Spencer replied gently, "and we've tested every aspect of this machine. Nothing escapes the chamber. The energy stays where it belongs." The chef nodded, but Spencer sensed uncertainty lingering behind his eyes. Trust would take time. Raytheon's marketing team prepared informational brochures, diagrams, and safety guidelines to accompany demonstrations. They emphasized the Radaranj's potential for commercial use, large kitchens, ships, hospitals rather than home adoption. The machine's enormous size and costs made it suitable only for industrial settings anyway. Yet even within these professional circles, the Radaranj needed something more than engineering excellence. It needed a narrative people could believe in. Spencer realized that his invention wasn't just a product. It was a shift in how people understood heat itself. "We have to teach them," he told Franklin, "before we can sell to them." Meanwhile, whispers spread across industries about Raytheon's strange new machine. Some newspapers published brief articles referring to it as a radar oven, a name that blurred the line between military and civilian technology. Spencer disliked the term. It implied surveillance, danger, secrecy. Instead, he advocated for clarity. "Radar was built for war," he said. "This is built for peace." He wanted people to see the Radaranj not as an offspring of conflict, but as a transformation born from a moment of curiosity in a lab once dedicated to survival. As the Radaranj underwent final inspections, Spencer thought back to the early experiments: the melting chocolate bar, the popping corn, the egg bursting in the test box. He remembered the fear in wartime, the urgency, the weight of responsibility. Now he felt a new weight. The responsibility to introduce technology without fear or misunderstanding. The wartime magnetron had inadvertently created peacetime innovation, but innovation needed careful stewardship. It wasn't enough to build something extraordinary. People had to feel safe with it. One evening, Spencer stood outside the Raytheon building, watching the sunset reflect off the steel frame of the prototype through a window. The world was recovering, healing, learning to live again. He believed the Radaranj could help shape that future quietly, steadily, without fanfare. But he also knew that the greatest breakthroughs were not measured only by invention, but by acceptance. And acceptance, like victory, required patience, humility, and time. By the early 1950s, America had settled into a new rhythm, a rhythm shaped by optimism, suburban growth, and a hunger for modern convenience. The war was over, but its scientific echoes lingered in factories, laboratories, and quiet corners of innovation. And among those echoes stood the Red Orange, now refined, tested, and finally ready to step out of the industrial shadows. Percy Spencer watched from the sidelines as Raytheon prepared the first commercial units for sale. They were still enormous, still expensive, still unfamiliar to the average household, but they worked, and they carried within them a quiet truth. Some of the most transformative inventions are born not from ambition, but from accidents discovered by curious minds in times of crisis. As the first Radarange units were installed in restaurants and ships, the public's understanding slowly shifted. Chefs marveled at the speed with which frozen steaks thawed. Hospitals used the machines to warm medical supplies. Large cafeterias cut labor time dramatically. With each successful demonstration, fear gave way to fascination. People who had once recoiled at the idea of cooking with invisible waves now leaned in with wonder. Spencer followed these developments with a mixture of pride and humility. He had never sought fame. He sought understanding, and now understanding was beginning to take root. Raytheon honored Spencer's contribution publicly, but he remained a modest figure. He didn't give dramatic interviews or claim revolutionary titles. Instead, he spent most of his days mentoring young engineers, teaching them the same principles that had shaped his own life: curiosity, patience, observation, responsibility. In quiet conversations, he often reminded them that innovation was not a straight line, it was a series of unexpected turns, shaped by questions that seemed too strange to ask, and answers that seemed too simple to ignore. Many of these young engineers would later say that Spencer taught them not just engineering, but character. Meanwhile, the company refined the technology, shrinking its size bit by bit. By the mid-1960s, microwave technology began crossing into the consumer market, and those towering industrial machines evolved into compact appliances capable of sitting on a kitchen counter. Families marveled at foods heating in minutes instead of hours. Busy parents embraced the convenience. College students relied on it. The microwave oven became a symbol of modern life, something ordinary, unremarkable, embedded quietly into everyday routines. Few people who pressed those buttons knew of the war, the magnetron experiments, or the late-night tests in a cold Massachusetts lab. But the legacy was there, humming softly behind every meal. As the technology spread, Spencer often thought back to the moment that started it. A la melted candy bar in his pocket. He remembered the silence of the wartime lab, the weight of duty, the uncertain future looming over every experiment, and he realized something profound. The war had taken much from the world, but it had also forced humanity to understand science with a depth and urgency that pushed boundaries no one had imagined. Some discoveries served defense, others, like his, served life. And that, to Spencer, was a legacy worth carrying. In the final years of his career, Spencer would tell visitors, "I didn't invent anything alone. I simply noticed something and followed the truth of it." He believed deeply that science was not an act of genius, but of attention to the small, the strange, the unexpected. His discovery became the microwave oven, a peaceful innovation born from a tool of wartime detection. And as millions of households used it daily without knowing the story behind it, a quiet truth remained. Even in humanity's darkest hours, curiosity can spark creations meant for a gentler world. The war had ended, but the invention it accidentally produced would feed, warm, and help generations long after the guns fell silent.